So this is a revision video for Living Space by Eduqas. The poem describes a ramshackle living space with its lack of straight lines and beams balanced crookedly on supports. Eduqas has explained that the poem describes the slums of Mumbai, where people migrate from all over India in the hope of a better life. The slum areas are living spaces created out of all kinds of found materials, so corrugated sheets, wooden beams and tarpaulin, not your average materials you would make a home out of. In this poem, she celebrates the existence of these living spaces as a miracle. So a little bit about the context. First of all, it is set in Mumbai, or Bombay in India, which is home to 22 million people, and 70% of these people live in slums. The majority of the country are living in poverty. Asia's largest slum is located in Mumbai, where there is limited access to electricity, clean water, food, or opportunities for education. So in these areas, there is tremendous poverty, with unending stretches of narrow, dirty lanes and overcrowded communal bathrooms facilities. Huts are small, cramped and overcrowded, and the open sewers often contaminate sources of clean drinking water. So the overall setting of this poem is very, very poverty-stricken, and it really reflects in the structure and the description within the poem. So just as a bit of an example, this is an image of a slum that you would find in an area like Mumbai. As you can see, there is an uneven structure, nothing like the sort of Western homes that we recognise nowadays. And Eduqas recreates the structure, the very uneven ramshackle appearance in her poem. So just a little bit about Eduqas herself. She is a contemporary poet who was born in Pakistan and grew up in Scotland. So she is a multicultural person. She often deals with themes of identity, the role of women in contemporary society, and the search for meaning. She draws on her multicultural experience within her work. She is also a film director and has scripted a number of documentaries in India, supporting work with women and children. Eduqas' intimate knowledge of Mumbai is evident in this poem. She works to raise awareness of issues in other countries. So she often uses her poems as a source of spreading a message and raising awareness for bigger issues around the world. So if we start on the structure of the poem, first of all, it's 22 irregular lines. They are of differing lengths, which reflects the uneven appearance of the slums that you would find in Mumbai. There are 3 irregular stanzas, once again, to show the sort of irregularity. You don't have the same size buildings all in a row. You have a complete ramshackle appearance. And if you look at the actual poem, the 3 stanzas, the smallest one is in the middle, almost replicating the idea of squeezing a small home wherever there is any space, even if there doesn't seem to be any. It is written in free verse, so there is not a specific rhyme or rhythm to it. It's very much a free flow, although there are some random instances of rhyme, which could be suggesting possibly that there is a search for meaning there. There is the hope, there is some sort of structure, but it gets lost within the sort of poverty. There is use of enjambment, again, to show that there is this is possibly an ongoing problem in Mumbai and other sort of places with lots of slums. The first half of the poem focuses on the description of the living space, with the second half focusing on what's living inside that living space. And last of all, we have the overall use of mimesis in the structure to reflect the slums. So by mimesis, I mean that the poem very much mimics the shape and the appearance of the slums, and the content in it as well sort of mimics what you would expect the slums to look like and to include. So just having a look at a couple of quotes now. Key quotes. First of all, there are just not enough straight lines. So the first thing to note is that this is a Western opinion. First of all, we are starting the poem with what a Westerner, someone from somewhere like the UK, somewhere which is very domesticated, very formal, does not have so much poverty, would think of a place like Mumbai and the slums. There are just not enough straight lines. It's a very opinionated, very judgmental phrase. We have the adjectival phrase. There are just not enough which shows again the sort of judgment. There are not enough straight lines, and these straight lines themselves are symbolic of order. There is no order in places like this. So because there are no straight lines, there's no order. The architecture does not have the regimented straight lines that other houses may have, and therefore there's no solidity. There's no certainty in living in a place like this. They could fall down at any moment. There's no security. So this all shows a general disdain when it comes to Western countries looking at poverty, even if those who are living in the poverty don't really see a problem with it. So moving on, second quote, nails clutch at open seams. Now, first of all, you have the first section, nails clutch. So you've got the verb clutch, which shows the desperation of the people who live there, the people who are trying to hold together their community and hold together these homes because it's the only place they have. You also have the double meaning of the word nails. You have the metal nails that you would have to hold together a structure, and then you also have the idea of a human hand with nails, which are clutching onto something with desperation again, to support the verb clutch, that desperation of trying to hold on to what they need. So again, you have the personification there. And then you have the second section here showing the open seams. So this is alike to material or clothes that you would wear. When you think of the word seams, you think of the seams on a jacket or a t-shirt. When these seams are torn apart, they are imperfect and you cannot put them back together. Or if you do, they're never going to be perfect. It's always going to look quite disorderly and quite handmade. So these are the sorts of places that people are living in. They look so random and so ugly because they have been almost torn apart. They're having to be put back together and they are literally coming apart again. And once they do, it's never going to be perfect. They're never going to be aligned properly again. So next quote, the whole structure leans dangerously towards the miraculous. So you've got the noun structure, which is almost clinical. It is not welcoming or homely. You will notice in this poem, particularly with the title as well, Living Space, there is no reference to a home. Everything is very clinical. Everything is very much describing these places as simply a place to live. They are not somewhere which is comfortable or homely or welcoming. So we see that in the word structure. Leans dangerously towards the miraculous. So if you look at this line in particular, the structure of this line, it is the longest line in the whole poem, and it very much physically leans over the whole poem. So this is literally showing the sort of danger and the anxiety here that at any moment this may collapse. This is actually leaning dangerously over the side. So this line structurally is showing physically how these structures can just come apart at any moment and how dangerous it is. You also have the enjambment there to show that possibly there's some sort of pause here that's showing a build-up of tension, leans dangerously towards the miraculous. So there's some sort of worry there. So if we look at towards the miraculous, we have this abstract noun. Okay, which shows that it is a shock that this structure, these slums are still standing. They are so shoddy, they are so badly made and badly kept, not because of lack of effort, but because of that, it's a shock that they're still standing. It's a miracle, okay? Which again, the fact that it's miraculous links to the theme of religion and faith, okay? These people have faith and it is a miracle that they're still standing. Okay, so someone has squeezed a living space. Next quote. So we have the impersonal noun someone, so anyone could have built these buildings. There's no ownership there, it's very impersonal. We have the verb squeezed, which shows again that desperation, that need for a roof over someone's head, no matter what it takes. and squeezed a living space. Again, that fact that it's called a living space, not a home or a house, it's simply somewhere to live. There is no standard of life. It's impersonal, it's not homely, and there is nothing really that they are doing other than just living. They are living in poverty. They're not enjoying life. They're not being families. They're not having fun. They're just living. And also the structure of this makes up the smallest stanza, which is in the middle of the whole poem, and shows how a very small living space can be squeezed in. It's again a literal representation through the structure of the poem of how a small living space can be squeezed into the smallest space. Another example of mimesis there. And last of all, we have as if they were the bright, thin walls of faith. This is the imagery of the eggs in the basket, in that wire basket hanging over the edge. So we've got the simile, as if they were the bright, thin walls of faith. So we've got the words bright and thin, these adjectives, which are very juxtaposing. So we've got these eggs being described as bright. They are shining. They're the only hope that remains in this place. But then again, they're also described as thin. So they are fragile. They're breakable. They're not going to last forever. They could go at any moment. And again, we've got the word faith linking to religion, that abstract noun. So there is still hope there within these eggs, within this promise of new life. And this is what keeps them going ultimately. So if we go on, going towards the end, the key imagery in this poem is the first section of the poem. We've got the structure of the slums, nothing is flat or parallel, nails clutch, structure leans, beams in balance. All these phrases just to, again, really hammer it home how impractical this living space is, how it is simply somewhere to live. It is not beautiful, it's not homely, it's not welcoming. And then the eggs representing hope and life, so eggs in a wire basket, fragile curves of white, bright thin walls of faith. And something really interesting is to look at towards the end of the poem, the contrast of light versus dark. So themes, we've got the theme of fragility with the eggs and the life and how the structure can fall apart at any time. We've got the cultural identity, so the fact that Imtiaz Darka, who wrote this, was herself a multicultural person, and it's the idea of highlighting a culture that someone else a reader may not have experienced before. We've got the faith and religion, what keeps these people going, the idea of keeping the hope, keeping the faith, and being able to believe in something which keeps them going. And environment, a very obvious one, with it being such a description of such a different place. That it really describes a very different environment to what we are used to in the Western world. And lastly, we've got our comparisons. So I would personally compare this to Cozy Apologia, as we have an environment which is almost in threat, or is definitely in threat, such as in Cozy Apologia. You've got the sort of contentment of Rita Dove and her husband, except you've got the storm raging outside, which is threatening to turn everything down. And in Living Space, you've got the same sort of situation. The people are happy with what they've got, they're contented, but the Western world sees it as it's very precarious and it's something which is not beautiful to them. And then London, again, you've got the description of a very poverty-stricken area. London, you've got the streets of London, and Living Space, you've got the slums of Mumbai.